Ladies and gentlemen, do you ever feel invisible, like no one sees your struggle, that your pain, your effort, your dreams don't matter to the world? If you've ever screamed silently, why doesn't anyone care? This message is for you. Today we confront the harsh truth: nobody cares, but that truth isn't your enemy. It's your greatest uncower. Let's cover why that reality is the very fuel you've been missing to become unstoppable. There comes a time in every soul's journey where silence becomes louder than applause. A time when you look around for someone, anyone, to notice the weight you've been carrying, and no one does. That's when the truth sets in like cold morning air. Nobody cares. Not in the way you hoped, not as deeply as you wished, and in that moment of stark clarity, something beautiful is born, a spark that says, then I must care, and I must work harder. There is something seductive about self-pity. It sneaks in, quietly wrapping itself around your disappointments like a blanket. It tells you it's okay to feel broken, and it is, but it doesn't stop there. It whispers that you've tried enough, that life has been unfair, that others had more support, more luck, more love, more attention. It tells you that it makes sense to be tired, and before you realize it, you're not just resting, you've surrendered. Self-pity is not kindness, it is paralysis disguised as comfort. It creates a story in your mind where you are the victim and the world is your villain. The longer you stay in that story, the more you convince yourself that you are powerless, that your life is happening to you, that your destiny is in some, but none else is to be from the furthers in self, is dangerous, because it off the hook allows you to stop trying without calling it quitting. It replaces explanation with only someone cared. If only someone cared. If only yourself, you tell yourself. If exp on yourself, if explanation replace action, you saw me, if only I had what they have. And while you sit and recite your list of reasons, time passes, opportunities to fire within you starts to dim. Not because aren't capable, but because you were convinced that your pain meant you should pause. Instead of push story, everyone has a story, one has a story, everyone, a past full of things they didn't choose. Pain is not exclusive to you. What separates those who rise from those who remain stuck isn't the presence of pain, it's how they respond to it. Tell me, some take their pain and enter it into power, others you slip to stop moving. You don't need the road else to trap. You're someone that's the struggle is like waiting for permission to live. If you keep seeking validation, you'll live reaction instead of creation. Is the birthright of every soul, is the birth of creation, and create a life of creation and reaction for soul is like no growth, there's an order in your soul that chooses to live awake. Every time you choose self-pity, you delay your growth. Every time you focus on what others haven't done for you, you know what you can do for yourself. Every time you wait for the world to care, you give it power it never deserved. Real power comes from reciprocity, from standing mirror and saying, this is my life, me no one has come me a second chance, a lucky break, or an applause, that I owe it to myself to rise. Ruth is uncomfortable, but it's freement, because stop minute you stop needing anyone to care is freeing. Anyone is uncomfortable. It's the lump, regardless. The moment in front of truth is start reclaiming your strength. Think about the people who inspire you the most. Chances are, tell me, their greatness was born in solitude and rejection, in dark seasons of their lives where no one was clapping for them, where they were doubted, ignored, overlooked, but instead of using that silence to shrink, they used it to sharpen. They got clear, they got focused there. They got focused, they got hungry, not for attention, but for growth. Self-pity will tell you to wait until someone understands. Growth says, move now. Self-pity asks, why me? Growth says, because I can handle it. Self-pity wants company. Growth embraces solitude. One feeds your ego, the other feeds your soul. Tell me, when you let go of the need for others for sympathy, become what they are chasing, or be feel a bit invisible. We're not hoping for stoppable dismantle to coming and know it is, and when your accomplished strengths, they're not a proper checks in hard work. Also, if you say because when they have somebody in the absence of recognition, you are left with one voice, your own. And when you learn to hear and to trust it to happen, it to follows. When you shift to follow it, that's the shift happens. That's their loan. If you learn to trust that to for that's when your voice will be chosen. When you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Choosing yourself isn't arrogance. It's awareness. It's realizing that self-pity will always make you a prisoner of the past while self-responsibility sets you free. Don't need someone else to see yourself clearly. You need to decide. You need, if you're stoic, that your story matters, if it's never posted, liked, or shared. There's a moment in every person's life where they are forced to sit in the stillness, not the peaceful, curated kind of silence filled with soft music and incense, but the real kind, the kind that feels empty, hollow, the kind that makes you question if you're doing the right thing, if your efforts are even making a difference, if any of this matters. This is the space most people run from. This is the space where the noise of the world fades, and all you are left with is yourself. It's easy to be motivated when people are clapping. It's easy to show up when eyes are on you, when recognition is forward point, when every step forward is met with applause. But when the lights dim and the audience disappears, that's when your true character is revealed. That's when your purpose is tested in the silence. Your work is no longer about performant presence, becomes about presence. Most people avoid silence because they've never learned to sit with their own thoughts. We fear the distraction, they fear the stimulants, because as Kyle Frunson, with who they really are, without filters, titles, where they really are, without filters, titles, or affirmation. But it is only in that space that transformation truly begins. Silence holds a mirror up to your soul and asks, are you doing this for them or for you? The world is loud, it rewards noise, it pays attention to trends and traffic, but not to truth. The truth for attention making, for awareness. If you want to do meaningful work, if you want to create a life, most of the looking for doesn't happen in grand moments. It happens in private hours. It happens in early mornings when no one is watching, in it late nights, when no one is stretching in long ounces of focus, when the only sound is the ticking of a clock. Those hours unseen and often uncelebrated are where real grail celebrated, are where real greatness begins. Because greatness isn't built through exposure. It's built through consistency, through devotion. Tell me, the silence is uncomfortable because it strips away the illusion of progress. Without followers, likes, or validation, your work becomes raw, it becomes vulnerable, it becomes real, and in that rawness you are faced with an important question. Would you still do this if no one ever clapped? Would you still give your all if no one ever saw? If the answer is yes, then you have entered the rare space of purpose-driven living, and that's where your power multiplies. So many people confuse visibility with value. They think if it's not being seen, it must not matter. But some of the most important work in the world happens in silence. A seed grows underground before it ever breaks the surface. Caterpillar dissolves inside a cocoon before becoming a butterfly. Healing, transformation, and mastery, these all begin in solitude. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. Most people are too distracted to reveals you what matters. If he also, your inner voiding, gives you space and deep move, intense surrender, and the rest is flattering. It forces you to create from within rather than react to the noise outside of you. When you choose silence, you are choosing truth over tension. You are choosing mastery over momentum. You are choosing depth over distraction. The kind of choice isn't flashy, but it is foundational, because eventual, the noise fades, the hype dies down, and the only thing that remains is what you put when no one was watching, when no one was watching. Tell me, most people wait for the right moment, the right environment, the right support, but the silence is always available, and that makes it the most honest place to begin. When you stop resisting it, When you stop fearing what it might reveal, you begin to see that everything you've ever needed has been inside you all along. In the silence, there is no competition, there is no comparison, there is no need to prove anything, there is only your breath, your smoothness, and your next forms. This is where clarity lives, this is where resilience forms. This is where you remember you started and why you started and why you must continue. You stop running from the work and start running with it. You become the kind of person who no longer needs permission or approval. You become someone who trusts the process even when no one is watching. There's something deeply intoxicating about being seen, about being acknowledged, about someone saying, I see how hard you're working. It feels like nourishment to a starving soul, especially when you've been carrying silent burdens for so long. We are taught from a young age to associate value with applause, to feel worthy only when someone else tells us we are. Whether it's a nod of approval, a digital like, or an award handed over in front of a crowd, external validation can feel like oxygen, but the truth is it's not. It's vapor, a mirage. You can chase it for miles, but it will never quench what you're truly thirsty for. Tell me, we live in a time where attention is mistaken for worth, where recognition often seen as proof that we're on the right path. And in that climate, working without being feels like failure. You start to doubt yourself. Why hasn't anyone noticed? Why hasn't anyone acknowledged what I've done? That question becomes a weight on your spirit. It turns progress into pressure and effort into expectation, and slowly your focus shifts from becoming to being seen. But here is the truth you must make peace with. External validation is not the foundation for anything that lasts. It is fleeting by design. What they clap for today, they'll forget tomorrow. The world has a short memory and an even shorter attention span. If your motivation is tied to someone else's recognition, then your drive will rise and fall with their moods, their opinions, and their distractions, and nothing stable can be built on that. It's easy to forget this when you're putting in long hours with no credit. When you're showing up day and no day after no one seems to care, it's tempting to think, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But doing the right thing isn't always visible. In fact, some of the most profound growth happens in the shadows, where there's no one to cheer you on, no spotlight, no pat on the back, just you, and the work just you, and your discipline just you, and your soul whispering, keep going. Tell me, there is a kind of power that comes from detaching for external validation. It doesn't mean need. You don't appreciate ignition, it means you're no longer addicted to it. You stop chasing the approval of others and start living in alignment with your own truth. You begin to measure success not by applause, but by integrity, not by attention, by effort, not by likes or shares or praise, but by the quiet knowing that you showed up fully regardless of who was watching. And when you reach that place, everything shifts, your energy changes. You're no longer performing, you're practicing, you're no longer chasing applause. You're mastering your craft. Tell me, you're no longer trying to prove, you're simply choosing to become this. When you enter the realm of the few, the ones who are not shaken by silence or distracted by noise, you become a person of focus, of purpose, of real inner strength. Letting go of external validation is not easy. It takes courage to stand tall in the absence of praise. It's clarity to keep going when there's no visible reward. But that's exactly what makes you strong, because it means your roots are deep. It means your reason for rising isn't conditional. It means you are free. And here's what's even more powerful. The more you let go of needing to be seen, the more you become someone worth seeing, not because you've begged for the spotlight, but because you've outgrown the need for it. There is a magnetic quality to people who are grounded in themselves, people who are rooted in purpose rather than applause. They draw attention not by seeking it, but by embodying excellence. You must ask yourself, would I still do this if no one ever knew I did? If the answer is yes, then you're operating from a place of truth. If the answer is, then it's time to reconnect with your why did you start this journey in the first place? Why did you commit to the discipline, the dream, the growth? It was never supposed to be about them. It was always about who you are becoming in the process. When you remember that you begin to reclaim your energy from the exhausting chase of being seen, you start pouring that energy into becoming excellent, into mastering your craft, into building something that stands even when the crowds walk away. Pain is not the enemy, though. We've been conditioned to see it as something to escape something, to numb something, to avoid at all costs pain. Holds a deeper role in the architecture of our growth. It does not show up without purpose. It does not enter without bringing with it a mirror one that reflects the parts of us we've ignored, avoided, or forgotten. Pain arrives as a teacher, and unlike comfort, it never lies. Tell me, when you begin to see pain not as punishment, but as preparation, your entire relationship with life shifts. The setbacks that once felt like failure begin to feel like refinement. The betrayals that once broke your trust begin to build your boundaries. The rejections that once shrank your self-worth begin to shape your resilience. Pain does not come to end your journey, it comes to realign you with it, but to understand this, you to be willing to feel it fully. Most people run from pain. They wrap it in distraction, drown it in noise, hide it behind forced smiles and empty affirmations. But unprocessed pain never disappears. It only delays your evolution. It lingers in your habits, your relationships, yourself. Talk it quietly drives decisions without your awareness. But when you face pain head, when you sit with it without judgment, something sacred happens. You begin to hear what it's really trying to say. Tell me, pain teaches you who you really are. Beneath the image you show the world, it strips away the illusions and reveals the raw truth. It shows you how much strength lives inside you, not when everything is going well, but when everything feels like it's falling apart. It teaches you that you don't need ideal conditions to grow. You only need willingness. You only need presence. You only need the courage to keep walking even when your heart is heavy and your path is unclear. There's a special kind of power that emerges from those who have walked through fire and didn't pretend it was easy. They didn't deny the burn. They didn't fake a smile. They let the pain do its work. Tell me, they let it break them open, not apart. They didn't ask for it, but they honored it. And in doing so, they came out the other side with something far greater than comfort. They came out with wisdom. Pain is honest. It doesn't flatter your ego. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It tells you what you need to change. It tells you when you've outgrown your environment. It tells you when you've stayed too long in a place, a mindset, or a relationship that no longer serves your becoming. And when you ignore it, it grows louder, not to harm you, but to awaken you. Tell me, the most profound growth happens when you stop resisting pain and start listening to it, not wallowing in it, not letting it define you, but letting it refine you, letting it teach you what ease never could, letting it remind you that strength isn't built when everything is smooth. Strength is forged in resistance, in tension, in discomfort. Tell me, in those moments when everything in you wants to give up, but something deeper whispers not yet. And that whisper, quiet as it may be, is the voice of transformation. It's the reminder that you are not your pain, but you are responsible for what you become through it. Pain may visit, but you decide whether it stays as a wound or evolves into wisdom. You decide whether it hardens you or humbles you, whether it shuts you down or wakes you up. There is something undeniably real about someone who has suffered and still stands with grace, someone who has lost and still loves deeply, someone who has been pushed down but rises not with bitterness but with clarity. That clarity was bought with pain, and that clarity is what separates those who simply exist from those who evolve. pain, when acknowledged and respected, becomes your compass. It points to what still needs healing, what still needs changing, what still needs releasing. It challenges your comfort zones, demands your attention, and insists on your growth. And if you allow it, if you sit long enough in its presence, tell me, pain will not only teach you how to endure, it will teach you how to rise, how to rebuild, and how to remember the power that was always within you. In a world that rarely pauses to notice your pain, your effort, or your silent victories, it's easy to slip into the belief that none of it matters, that your struggle is invisible, that your work goes unseen, that your voice echoes into emptiness. But that belief, while understandable, is not the truth. Is this: you were never meant to be fueled by applause, comfort, or validation. Tell me, you were meant to be ignited from within self. Pity will tempt you to sit in your suffering and wait for someone to notice, but greatness doesn't bloom in pity. It grows in discipline, in the decision to keep moving even when no one is watching. Silence, though uncomfortable, is not your enemy. It is the sacred ground where mastery begins. It strips away the noise and calls you back to your essence. Tell me, there in the quiet you meet your deepest self, and there you find the clarity to rise. External validation may seem like a prize. It's a mirage. What matters isn't whether the world claps for you. It's whether you're aligned with your own truth. It's whether you're working for significance, not spectacle. Whether you're moving from purpose, not performance. Real fulfillment is never found in the eyes of others. It's found in the integrity of your own effort. Tell me, and pain, though unwanted, is one of your most honest teachers. It doesn't show up to destroy you. It shows up to develop you, to challenge what you've settled for, to awaken what you've ignored, to rebuild you into someone who no longer waits for life to care, but instead becomes someone who cares enough to keep going. Nobody cares good, then there's nothing stopping you, no expectations to meet, no applause to chase, only the work. The quiet, sacred, honest work that transforms your life from the inside out. And in that space where no one sees you, become someone no one can ignore.